Welcome to the Reed and Christine Halliday Executive Lecture Series. Today we're fortunate to have with us Jill Taylor. Jill currently serves as president for KeyBank's Utah District, and as such is the senior representative and spokeswoman who leads the organization's economic and community development efforts. She oversees the full range of KeyBank's financial services throughout the state of Utah, and for her that means 300 plus employees to supervise, over 39 branches in the state. Previously, Jill served as Senior Vice President and District Retail Leader for KeyBank in Utah, overseeing the branch network. Under her leadership, Utah's retail division was the top performing team among KeyBank's 23 districts. Jill led her team to success through a number of innovations, including the development of results-oriented sales teams that help KeyBank's Utah clients achieve their financial goals. Jill first began in the banking industry with Bank One, where she served as first vice president and retail district manager in Utah prior to joining KeyBank in 2004. Jill earned her bachelor's degree in communication from the University of Utah. She is active in a number of charitable and community endeavors. She currently sits on the boards of the United Way of Salt Lake, the Economic Development Corporation of Utah, Westminster College Institute for New Enterprise, Junior Achievement, and the Utah Bankers Association. So please join me in welcoming Jill Taylor.
I totally lost all credibility when you heard my major, huh? It's okay, you can admit it. And my son always tells me, he goes, "Mom, just remember, you're kind of boring." He's almost 18. And he said, so you got to start out with a joke, so at least they'll hear something. So everybody's familiar with what the banking industry has been like the last 3 years. Just smooth sailing. So maybe you'll appreciate this. So there's an engineer, a chemist, and a banker. And they stop at this small inn. And they need a place to stay. And the innkeeper says, oh, the only problem is I only have 2 rooms. So one of you will have to go stay out in the barn. They said, that's okay, we're so tired, we can do that. So the engineer goes out to stay in the barn. And a few minutes later, the engineer knocks on the hotel door. And he says, he's telling the innkeeper, goes, I'm sorry, but there's a cow in the barn, and I'm Hindu, and I can't stay there. So the chemist says, not a problem, let me go. So the chemist goes out to stay in the barn. And a few minutes later, there's another knock on the door, and it's the chemist. And he says, oh, I didn't realize there was a pig, and I'm Jewish, and I really can't be there with a pig. And so the banker says, no problem, let me go out and stay in the barn. So the banker goes out and stays in the barn, and a few minutes later there's a knock on the door, and the innkeeper answers it, and there is a very upset cow and a pig. So we have been very popular the last few years. Even the barn animals don't like to see us around. When I got this invitation to speak, I have to read this to you. I think this is from Randy here. We invite carefully selected top business leaders to discuss their industries and careers. And I'm not sure they were really careful on this one, so I just want you to have low expectations as we start this, okay? So, I was asked to talk to you a little bit about my career, lessons learned, a little bit about the industry, and maybe anything you want to talk about. And so I titled this, how on earth did I get here? Let me start with what I wanted to do when I grow up. And I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I have kind of an artsy side, and so I thought I wanted to do something in design. So I was in an interior design major for a while. Then I thought I wanted to do architecture, so I went into architecture for a while, which I still love. The only problem is you get a master's degree and you make as much as somebody flipping burgers. And that trade-off just didn't seem worth it. And then I was really into current events, loved the news, and thought, aha, I can be Katie Couric. And so that's why I chose communications. That, and I love to write. And I did get a chance for a couple of years after I graduated. I worked Channel 2 briefly, Channel 2, then Channel 4 for a little while. And then, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of things here. Okay, so we're going to talk about my career path because it is not typical, but it's probably more typical than I realize. When I got out of college, I thought you get your degree, you go into this field, you just move up this ladder, and it's just a straight road. And I'm here to tell you there is no straight career path anymore. And if you find it, let me know, because that might be a lot easier. But this is my resume. So I was a part-time teller at a small community bank when I was going to college, and I had absolutely no intentions whatsoever of going into banking. It didn't even cross my mind. That was my part-time job. It helped pay the bills till I finished my degree. So then I got to be an assistant news producer, which is really cool. You get to go do all these stories, interview people, and I was Get Gephardt before Gephardt was here. So I worked with a woman named Debbie Dujanovic. You're probably all too young to know who she is, but she was a reporter at Channel 4, and I would help find the stories, do a lot of the legwork. I would even get to interview them from time to time. Small on air, not much, but it was fun. I got to go undercover as like a 12-year-old boy one time. And it's really sad to say that in my early 20s I could pass as a 12-year-old boy, but it did work. It was great. Then I had my first son, and I thought I was just going to go with what the norm is here socially, and so I did the stay-at-home mom gig for a year and a half. And don't judge me. I love my kids, and I would be an exceptional stay-at-home mom if I had unlimited funds. But when you are scraping to make ends meet, and you really can't do anything except go to the library and go to the park, it kind of gets old after a while, at least for somebody with the attention span of a gnat. And so I really wanted a house. That was my dream. And I thought if I could just get into a good house, then it doesn't matter. That's all I need. So I was looking at my options, and I didn't go back into broadcasting for this reason. It was one of those careers that you never knew if you were going to have an 8-hour or an 80-hour work week, which is kind of a problem trying to plan for daycare. It's really depressing. You know, you see all the smiles and friendly jabs when people are on air. Yeah, what you don't hear is when you have the headphones on and you're more on the production side, they say the meanest things. It is just unreal. And I think a lot of it is they just deal with bad news all the time. You know, natural disasters, murders, accidents, bad weather. I mean, there's just not much there that's really uplifting, and you just kind of get into that mode. So when I was looking at my options, this is when I decided I wanted to go to medical school. So, and obviously I didn't finish. So what I did is I thought, let me go back to the bank and see if they have any openings. And if they have any openings, then I can go just save all my money while husband's working, and that will be our down payment. And so I went back. The only position they had at the time was a teller, and I said, fine, I'll take it. And I was a teller again for a couple months. And after a couple months, you know, I got promoted in the branch, and I got to be a banker, and I was an administrative assistant for a department for a while, and a sales and service coach. That was the funnest job because I just got to coach people, but I ultimately wasn't responsible for the results. You can't find those anymore. But it was a great job because I had to learn how to influence people without being able to tell them, you have to do this because I said so. So completely different than what you might picture. Anyways, I got to be a manager, I was a district manager, and today I'm the district president. So not really typical. You already heard what I do, so there's kind of the origin. So I'm often asked about some advice. And I don't know if this presentation is even going to make sense, but I figured you'd rather look at the screen than look at me. First thing, I would tell you in any job, do things that others aren't willing to do. And I've got a couple examples of this. It was actually kind of humiliating to graduate from college and go back and be entry-level, basically, job as a teller. I just thought, I'm a failure. Why? I can't believe this is all I could get. But I was willing to do it because I thought if I can just get my foot in the door. So sometimes you got to be willing to do things that maybe you don't initially want, to do, and others might not be willing to do in the same situation, do it. When I was a part-time teller, I was actually pretty good. We had started the sales process, and I love talking to people, so it was really easy for me to get referrals and whatnot, and we had started doing investments in the retail branches. And I loved the thought of having conversations with customers about helping them plan for retirement or save for college, or I couldn't imagine that nothing could ever go down. I just thought there's nothing but upside in this, so why wouldn't people do this? So I was pretty good at that. And I will tell you, the other lesson here is no matter what job you have, whether it's something you plan to do for a long time or not, do it well. It will pay off. And it doesn't matter what it is. That is the reason I was able to come back to that same bank. And had I not been able to come back, I would not have gotten these other opportunities for promotions that really happened much quicker than I could have ever anticipated. Seek stretch assignments. So my son was almost 2 when I went back to work. And by the time he was 2.5, I was in our administrative offices. And my boss was the most amazing man in the world. But he had been asked by our company to go do a lot of traveling. And so he was kind of the one-man shop here in our district. And he didn't call on one of his more experienced directs to kind of manage things while he was gone. He kept giving assignments to me. He had me running all these meetings with people that had been in the industry far longer than I had been, that knew a whole lot more than I did. And it kind of scared me, to tell you the truth. But I would accept those assignments every time he asked, even though it would make my heart kind of pound, and it took a lot of time. I remember there'd be nights I'd get home from work. And this was the fun thing. My husband and I had alternating shifts. So I worked in the day, and he had intentionally chosen to work the night shift. So he would drop my son off to me downtown, and then he'd head to work, and then I'd take the kid home, get dinner, get him to bed, go to sleep. I'd get up and go to work. I mean, we just never saw each other. And but it was worth it, because then for a while our son got to have us, at least a parent with them most of the time. But it was a stretch when I would have to do some of these stretch assignments, because what it would mean would be sometimes less time with my family. So on those few Saturdays when we got to be together, I would spend 4 days in the office making sure I was ready and prepared and fulfilling on these stretch assignments. But seek them out. They'll be the best things for you. Everybody needs to find a mentor. I mentioned this boss of mine, and I would tell you these assignments that he gave me, and then I eventually started asking for. He was an incredible mentor, and his name was Vance Miller. And does anybody know Vance? Okay. Last time I was telling somebody about Vance, like, I know Vance. He lived in my area. So anyways, he lived here in Linden, but worked in Salt Lake. Vance just could see things in people that they could never see in themselves. And to this day, I haven't worked for him for 12 years, but the 4 or 5 years that I worked for him, he had such an impact on me that I will still reach out to him and say, okay, here's a situation I'm dealing with. What would you do? So you need a mentor. You need to be a mentor in return. And mentors don't have to be somebody that's in a position above you. Oftentimes it's a peer. There are ways that you can kind of pay it forward, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and help somebody along the way. And the last thing I would say is you've got to be positive. People with positive attitudes, I can't remember the statistic, but studies show if you have a positive attitude, you will succeed more. And it's not always easy to have a positive attitude. I'll tell you about our industry in a few minutes, and you've seen the news and the bludgeoning, and I look at my stock price every day and think, ugh, so much for retirement. But if that's where my mind goes, I'm totally unproductive. And if I'm positive and think more about the future, it's amazing what we can do. Okay, so lesson. Salespeople will always get paid more. Whichever field you go into, I don't care where it is. My brother works for an accounting firm. The guys that go out there and find the jobs get paid more than the guys that do a lot of the work. Sales positions will always pay more. So you need to know that. Doesn't mean you'll have to go into some sort of sales position in whichever field you're in, but you got to be okay with that if you don't go into that. Let me show you how banking has changed a little bit. So a couple years ago, we were all bragging about all these new products and services that we had. And you can see this about the spinning double axle mortgage with the triple LUTs. When I started in banking, we had checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs. CDs were the big things. Mortgages. When I first started, you didn't do home equity loans because those were second mortgages, and that was like taboo. I mean, nobody'd want a second mortgage, and if you had it, you wouldn't admit it to your friends. But you did car loans. You had a safe deposit box. That was about the extent of it. I can tell you now, I can't even tell you all the products and services that are offered because banking has become much more than banking. It is now full financial services industry. I love this. Jeff Moss works with me in our wealth group, and he liked me so well that he sat way up there away from me. But Jeff's in our private banking group, so he can probably relate to this the most. It is amazing. Everybody thinks that, you kind of think you've got everything going and you're set. I can't even tell you how many times a situation, not quite this drastic, happens, but this is my goal and I want to be there. And as a banker now, in a lot of ways, we're trying to figure out how to create some of these miracles. People have lost a lot of wealth. So how can you advise them and help them get back on a path that is closer to what they had envisioned originally? I will tell you that the banking industry today, I think, has a greater responsibility to help clients than ever before because of all the changes that have happened. So when we're looking for employees, we're looking for people that can really understand markets, understand dynamics, understand risk, in a sense that 10 years ago they didn't have to understand as well, so that they can help clients. Dialing for dollars, I told you sales positions pay more. Yeah, I don't care which bank you're at. There's not one that people just come running into the branches because it's not a if you build it, they will come scenario. So you're doing a lot of outbound work. This is another thing. My pet peeve when people say, banker's hours, you've got banker's hours. Well, I have banker's hours if that means you start at 7 in the morning, you might end about 5:30 so you can go to daycare, then you start again about 8 until you're done. So no such thing as banker's hours. Oh yeah, I love this. And yet another political scandal, Freddie Mac has confessed to having an affair with Fannie Mae. We're always in the news. The first little pig built his house from straws just so he could have the last laugh when the bank foreclosed. There is a new norm, and I don't know if any of you felt it, but we hear this a lot, and that is because of a variety of things, banks are more cautious. Now, we don't require 300% down payment, but you saw the triple LUTs mortgage. You can't get that now because of some market conditions. Interest rates. I always love this one. So if you have a house and you have not refinanced, get in now. Okay, so I want to ask you some questions. This will be interactive because I thought I would share some of my challenges with you. And some of these I have up here and some of them I don't. The first question I get asked anytime I meet somebody, anybody want to guess what it is? Just shout it out because I can hardly see you. Oh, we're shy. Okay, participation, so nobody knows, so I'll tell you. If I had the lights on, I would be pulling you guys up. Okay, the first question I ever get asked is, oh, where did you come from? Now, why do you think people ask that? Louder, what was that? No, but that's a good guess. Oh, rich family. No, but I sure wish I was. Could be. They move from bank to bank. So maybe I'm taking this personally. Yeah, that I get this more often is, where did you come from? When I tell, oh, here's my position and it's a great job, but they always assume I'm from out of state. I was born and raised here. I attended both the blue and the red school. I'm Utah, okay? But they always assume I'm from out of state. So it's been interesting as I've had to really think through, because after a while I wanted to say, you jerks, why do you always ask that? And how to respond to that. Okay, so here is some things I want to know what you do. Who works now? Most of you? Okay, I'm going to assume that there have been changes at some point wherever you work that you have not agreed with. Raise your hand if that's the case. Oh, wow, yeah, even more raised your hand then than those that said you worked, so that's interesting. So I'm going to tell you about a change that was taking place that I didn't agree with, and I want to hear how you would have responded to it, and then I'll tell you how I responded to it. So a couple of years ago, after the 2008 crisis, there were some financial challenges, and unfortunately, sometimes to keep businesses in business, you have to make some cuts. So I was charged with making serious cuts that I totally disagreed with, because they wanted me to cut 30 salespeople. So this is the way the business works. The salespeople bring the customers in. So if you don't have a sales force, your opportunity for growth is just not there. Okay, how would you handle to that? What would you do? Yes? Give a counteroffer, okay? Good one. Any other thoughts?
What we had to do is we had to take people that were sales and put them in the other positions, because they already have the sales experience, so they can sell and do all the other things.
Very good. Okay, so let me tell you what I did, and here's a lesson for you. Don't do this. I got really mad. Really mad. I had built the most incredible team out there. We had finished number 1 and then number 2. I was angry. My area of the bank was performing really well. And I thought, why aren't you just going to, I won't say, some other area and saying, you cut, but because we're growing here, you don't have to. So here's what I did that I wouldn't do again. So I called the head of the segment and the finance folks, and instead of having a rational conversation, they said, how are you? And I said, I'm going to jump off the top of my building. And it just caught them so off guard. So here's a lesson. When you get those things, and this was a couple years ago. Usually I'm pretty good at this. I can kind of digest it, think about it, try to understand the reasons why, look at all the perspectives. Don't do that. Don't react in such a negative way right up front. I shouldn't have told, see, Jeff's here. Now he's going to go tell everybody in the office what I did. Dang it. Okay. This was a good one. So when I was first made a district manager, I don't know why they chose me, to tell you the truth. There were so many people that were interested in that job. I literally threw my name in just for the experience of interviewing. And then I got the call that I had been awarded the job, and all these other people that had interviewed had been at the bank for 20 years. They had done their time, so to speak. They were really good. They were very well respected. It was expected that they would get that position. So what do you think the reaction was when I got it? Yeah, they were probably more angry than disappointed. Yeah, there was some jealousy. How about the reaction from those that didn't even apply? Total disbelief. So, question for you. You'll likely be in a situation like that sometime. What would you do to win over those peers? Work twice as hard as them. Good. How do you show them that you deserve it? And other stuff. Okay, and the other stuff matters a lot. Yes. Make them feel valued. Great. Sincerely listen to them. Perfect. Do things for them, not just for yourself. Yes, one more. Very good. So let me tell you what happened in this interview process that makes this even more interesting. The hiring manager had decided to get some collaborative thoughts on this. So there was actually a group of the peers that hadn't applied for the job that were also involved in a group interview. They were all there with the interview. And I just know I was not their first choice. So that made that dynamic even harder. So all of the things that you guys have said pretty much sum up what I did. One of the things that I try to do, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I try to make sure that I can relate on every level of my organization. I used to be able to proudly say I know every single teller's name, but there's been enough turnover that I can't say I know every teller's name. But I make it a point, know their name, talk to them, know where they're going to school, what are they studying, what are their long-term plans. If we're going to be making a decision, we do a lot of focus groups. We try to get people involved. I did work twice as hard, and I knew that there were some key people that if I didn't have their buy-in, I would never get the rest of the groups. And one of these people was a man named Dan Bradshaw, who was so angry, and quite honestly was the guy I thought would get the job. And it took a while, and I can tell you now, Dan and I are incredibly good friends. It is amazing, and there was a time when I wanted to give up. I'd been in the role about 6 months, and I thought, this isn't worth it. It's not worth $1 million to deal with this every day. And by 18 months, things had changed. Okay, I got to tell you a heartbreaker story. So I have a neighbor, and actually a good family friend, that a few years ago was looking for a job. So I hooked him up with somebody at the bank, and they hired him. And when I make introductions, I never say, I know this person, you have to hire him. I just say, here's somebody I know that's interested, you interview, your call. If they're not the right one, don't you dare hire them because they know me. That never works out. So we hired him, and he was performing really, really, really well. And then one day we get a call from our security department that this friend of mine had been using his corporate card for personal use, and it had a fairly large outstanding balance. And I kind of knew the family situation, so I was really sympathetic to this. Okay, put yourself in my shoes, because from the time he was hired to the time this happened, now he's in my hierarchy. At first he wasn't, but now he's in my hierarchy. What would you do? Maintain the rules. Somebody say fire him. Okay, so let me tell you this lesson. That's absolutely the right thing to do, and it's exactly what we did, and we knew we had to do it. I knew we had to do it. That is a lot harder in real life than it is as we discuss it here. So one of the things you want to make sure that you do is almost role play in your head, what would I do if? Imagine the most horrible situation that could happen where you have to make some sort of judgment call and kind of plan ahead, what would I do if? I hated that one. Oh, and by the way, that happened, so I had a sister, my 30-year-old sister passed away suddenly in October of 2010. It was horrific. I wish that on no one. She had 5 kids. Okay, so that happened, and then I had just gotten back from bereavement, I guess. I could finally get my head off my pillow and get into work. The day I got back is when I got this news of how are you going to handle it. So it just gets better and better. Okay, I'm not exactly sure. I remember somebody told me once where the mind your P's and Q's comes from. I think it has to come from typesetting because they used to be the same, and so when you would typeset things, you had to really be careful that you didn't get them backwards. But a group of some of my leaders and I were talking about all the things that really make somebody successful, or things that you need to keep in mind as you're making decisions. people. The people that you work with and the people that you work for, in my opinion, is what matters most in any business. You got to be really careful. You're not always, there's cultural fits with people. So I believe firmly you work for your boss. You don't work for a company, you work for your boss. And if you don't have a good relationship there, it's just not going to be a good experience. So you've got to figure out how to find those people with whom you connect that you can have a really good positive relationship with. You have to have passion for what the work actually is. Don't take things just because you think it's going to make more money. Years ago, I was offered a position with a consulting firm, and I was offered double what I was making. How many of you would pass up double what you were making? A few. Okay, for most of us, that is like double your salary. Can you imagine? I don't care how much you're making. If it's double, that is substantial. So I thought really hard about this offer, and I did end up passing. And the reason I passed, and I would sit there and pull my hair and think, oh my gosh, should I make the right decision? The reason I passed, one thing, I wasn't passionate about what they did. And the second thing was, I didn't like the people. And I knew the people that I worked with at the time. It wasn't so much about being in a comfort zone as it was a real passion and purpose there. The other thing I would tell you is you've got to keep perspective. And I've trained my kids to tell them that mommy's always right, and when mommy's not right, or rule number 1 is mommy's always right, and rule number 2 is if mommy's wrong, refer to rule number 1. And they know it, they can quote it, just don't question me. But one of the things in business is it's interesting how I've learned this more and more, and I continue to learn this, is how you've got to realize that there are other perspectives on approaching problems or finding solutions or in how you look at things. You need to value others' perspectives. You need to find a way to understand others' perspectives in any job, in any career, if you're going to be successful. I'm a firm believer in you got to stand up for your principles, and they should never change, ever. If you're willing to change your principles based on the situation, it's going to catch up with you at some point. I've already talked about being positive. Pain. There is a lot of pain in growing. And I joke with my mom and would tell her, you know what? Because she would say, oh, what was it about? Something about how all this growth or it makes you better. And I would tell her, I'm as good as I want to be. I'm done. I don't want to be any better than I am. And that happens in business as well. There are times when you have to make hard decisions that are painful. There are times when, I'm going to share this story with you, where you get some personal pain. So I've been the district president here for 5 years. It's really easy to remember. I'll never forget because I was 9 months pregnant when they asked me to do this. I was dumbfounded. Thought, are you kidding? Have you seen me? My ankles are this big. I can hardly walk, and you think I can do this. So, last child, I'll always know how long I've been in this job. Well, it's kind of a unique thing, at least in Utah. So most of my counterparts who are fantastic men and I have great relationships with, but they're kind of 50-year-old white guys, okay? And I'm a fish out of water. So there was this cute little reporter from the Deseret News that saw some press release about the change in leadership, and she came and interviewed me, and they ran a story. And then somebody at KSL wanted to do some feature story on it. And I thought, oh, well, this is kind of overwhelming, but okay. So did the interviews and whatnot, didn't think anything of it. I received hate mail. So do you believe me or do you think I'm lying? I really did. I received hate mail, and these were some of the things they said. I'm asked sometimes why I work, and I really do believe I am setting a good example for my kids that there's a value of work. They know homework never goes away because I take it home every night. So they might think when they get out of school, but no, it never goes away. And I want them to be self-sufficient. I want them to know that they can do things that are maybe bigger and broader than what they ever thought they could do. And I love my kids with every fiber of my being. I would give up my job, I would give up my house, I would give up everything for those little stunts. And so these were some of the letters I got. Got a letter telling me that if I really loved my kids, I wouldn't be working, that I obviously must not be a very good mother. Like, it truly is, that is the one thing in life that matters the very most to me. Just stabbed me in the heart. I received another one that said that if I was a really good person, I would step down from that position and let a man have it so that he could support his family, and that I was part of the problem for the issues in the workforce. So, how do you think that made me feel? Yeah, so then, all of a sudden now I've got friends that are, like there's the KSL blogs. I hope none of you do that. I'm convinced that people that do that are not very bright. But anyways, most of them can't write either. So there was this whole list of people on KSL that obviously they weren't paying attention to their children because they were busy whining about me. But then like my friends started getting on there, she's a good person, and anyways. Okay, so there will be pain. There's going to be people that hate you, and you got to have thick skin and just realize it's okay because there's plenty of people that love me. Performance. Performance matters. It doesn't matter how nice you are, how long you've been someplace. Long gone are the days of tenure in any position. Whatever you do, performance matters. And I would tell you that you need to take charge of knowing what that performance is. How many times have you don't have to raise your hands, but there's an annual review process for most companies, and that's the only time you hear about what you're doing, how your performance is perceived. You need to be very proactive, reach out, find out, is your performance up to par if you don't know. In a sales position, it's easy because there's all sorts of reports and you can see right where you rank. I'm producing or I'm not. But in other positions, and I've had both types of positions, you may not know, and you need to know that, and it's up to you to know it, and you should never be surprised when you sit down to have a conversation with a boss, with a board, with a CEO. Take pride in what you do, but don't be proud. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter what position you're in. It doesn't matter. You're not better than anybody else. So take pride in what you do, but don't be proud. Sometimes you have to be really, really persistent to get where you want to go. Some people, maybe it may seem like they're more lucky, and I'll be honest, I think at times I look like one of those people that's just been really lucky. And I would tell you I have been blessed, but I've worked very hard as well. It hasn't just fallen in my lap. It's because of hard work that I've gotten some of these opportunities. I have peers that it took them longer, but they were so persistent and set on those goals. And the other thing I would tell you is to pay it forward. Have you seen the movie? It's old. With, what was his name? Yeah, he was in it. What was the kid's name? Yeah, the Osment kid. Well, first of all, I don't like sad movies, and since my sister died, I would never watch a sad movie again. But that movie has hit me in so many ways, whether it's your personal life, your family life, or your business life. Pay it forward. Find a way to make a difference, do something that isn't, kind of a tit for tat type thing. Just do it. I promise you that pays off. Okay, I'm always asked how I hire people. So, obviously you need a strong work ethic. Past work experience does matter, but you know what? You don't have to be in banking for that to be past work experience. There are other types of work experience that make incredible employees for us. I'll give you an example. Commercial banking is kind of a complex area. They deal with, our commercial banking group deals with companies that have revenues in excess of 20 million. They even have a couple of companies that are like 500 million. They may even have a publicly traded company or two in their portfolio. So they deal with some pretty complex things. I hired a woman that came to us after selling copiers. Do you think I'm nuts? You can say you do, because you'll probably never see me again. And I've already told you my feelings were hurt about not being a good mother. This won't mean anything to me. But honestly, there was something about her. She had this incredible drive. She had been incredibly successful. in this business. She'd had some past leadership, and she's finished around the company as one of the top 5 commercial bankers and lenders, and there's about 100 of them for our company. So don't think that you have to be pigeonholed. It kind of goes to that career path. It doesn't have to be straight. You just have to bring some experience. Flexibility. This is a pet peeve when somebody says, well, that's not my job. That's not my responsibility. So everything is your job. Everything is your responsibility. If you act that way, you're going to be more valuable. And in today's world, you've got to be mobile. I was so impressed got to meet with the dean before we came in here, and just the experiences he's had in moving all over the world, not the country, but the world. And I was a little selective that way because I had kids and I don't do heat, and so when I was asked to move to New Orleans, when I was asked to move to Houston, no, I just don't do heat. So I might have done Hawaii, though. That could have been a standout exception there. But you really do need to be mobile for a lot of opportunities, and we look for people that are mobile. Now, I'm only in charge of Utah, so being in charge of Utah, I'm just hoping that maybe somebody like Jeff Moss, who lives in Utah County, is mobile enough to drive clear up to Salt Lake now and then, and vice versa. And I'm looking for people that have a lot of drive, and you know what? They might benefit our company if they're willing to transfer to Seattle. And we've had some of those, and it's good for them, it's good for our company, it's good for our shareholders. Being mobile is a plus. It doesn't mean you have to. I just told you, I never moved. Stayed right here. It's not career suicide if you don't, but it is a benefit, and we do look for it. And you've got to be a team player. My leadership team will tell you that I can be a little picky. So I'm all about flexibility, and I don't care when you punch the clock, but I actually do care if you come in your pajamas. And the biggest thing for me is somebody that is confident but not cocky. You can't get things done as a team if you're cocky. So this is my real pride and joy right here. This is my 4 kids, if you count the husband. I'm not sure why he's scrunching down there, but anyways, he would be a whole inch or 2 taller. And I will tell you, every decision I make for my professional life, for my business, this is what's in the back of my mind, is am I making decisions, one, that down the road the reputation will be somebody that had good character, good judgment, et cetera, because, you know, I'm not filthy rich. There's not going to be this legacy of money, but I want them to know, or I want to, if there is a legacy, for it to be one of character. And the second thing is, it reminds me of what's important in life. And as good as the jobs are, that's what matters. So, with that, I think we've got a couple minutes for a couple questions. You guys are hungry. I get it. Okay, yell it. Yeah, no, I'm not. I will tell you, I would love to own my own business at some point, but I picture that more of me owning it and I still work and my husband running it. Yeah, but I have this curiosity about a lot of things. I would love to go, I was supposed to get my MBA, and I ended up with number 3 on the week. He was due the week I was supposed to start this executive MBA program. And he's the most difficult child, and God must have known that, because if he had been first, he would be an only. But so that's still one of my goals to do. I am still very interested. I want to get my MBA. It's not going to do anything for my career at this point, but it's more of it was a goal, and I'm going to do it. So, but yeah, no. What else? Yell at me. Sorry, I can't see. Yeah, she's asking what inspired me to want to do broadcasting. Do you know, I think it was more a matter of it was just kind of there. I loved writing, and I loved talking to people, so it just seemed like a natural thing. I don't think it's, financially, I don't think that would be the wisest decision, but if you have a real passion for it, it can be very fulfilling. So, okay, well, with that, thank you for having me. And I wish you all the best of luck.